Hallo und herzlich willkommen hier bei einer neuen Folge von A Thousand Paths of Healing. Mein Name ist Laura Eggers und wie immer freue ich mich sehr, dass du heute wieder mit dabei bist und ich freue mich auch schon, diese neue spannende Folge mit dir zu teilen. Heute geht es um das Thema Breathwork. Es ist ja gerade eine Methode, die immer bekannter wird und ich habe in den letzten Monaten auch eine Ausbildung dazu gemacht. Ich bin jetzt auch selbst Breathwork Therapeutin sozusagen. Ja, und ich habe die Gelegenheit gleich beim Schopf gepackt und mir einen meiner Ausbilder als Podcast-Gast in den Podcast eingeladen. Und deswegen ist mein heutiger Gast Jordan Head. Jordan ist einer der Ausbilder bei Innercamp. Er ist natürlich Breathwork Facilitator seit vielen Jahren. Er ist NLP-Coach und arbeitet seit 17 Jahren im Gesundheitsbereich und hat ganz viel Erfahrung, die er heute mit uns teilt. Und wir sprechen auch heute über Jordans eigenen Weg tatsächlich und wie Breathwork ihm dabei geholfen hat, dass es ihm heute deutlich besser geht als früher. Wir sprechen darüber, was Breathwork überhaupt ist. Also in diesem Podcast geht es vor allem um Conscious Connected Breathwork, also den verbundenen Atem. Aber wir sprechen auch über andere Atemmethoden. Wir sprechen darüber, wofür das gut sein kann, also wann Breathwork heilsam und unterstützend sein kann. Wir sprechen aber auch über die Kontraindikationen und die Gefahren und wir sprechen auch darüber, wie man sicherstellen kann, dass man eine sichere und gute Erfahrung hat und wie man einen guten Anbieter für einen Breathwork-Workshop finden kann. Ja, wir sprechen noch über ganz, ganz viele andere spannende Themen, also hör dir die Folge unbedingt an. Die Folge ist diesmal wieder auf Englisch. Du kannst gerne auf YouTube vorbeischauen und dir die Folge dort mit englischen Untertiteln anschauen. Ja, und ich habe auch vor, in den nächsten Monaten einiges zum Thema Breathwork und Atemarbeit anzubieten. Also wenn du daran Interesse haben solltest, dann kannst du dich gerne bei mir auf der Website in den Newsletter eintragen oder aber du folgst mir auf Instagram unter @a1000pathsofhealing. Und jetzt geht's los mit der Folge. Hi, Jordan. I'm so happy to have you on my podcast today, and I'm really excited about all the things we're going to talk about today. Before we dive right in, maybe you want to just introduce yourself to our listeners and tell a little bit about what you do and who you are.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for having me on the podcast as well, Laura. My name is Jordan Head, and my background, I've been working in the health and wellness industry for like the last 18 years. So really, as soon as I was old enough to have a job, I've been in health and wellness. So it started more from a perspective of exercise. I was working within gyms and doing like sort of one-to-one personal training and doing group exercise. Then I saw that there were many people who wanted to change. They wanted to change their body shape. They wanted to improve their health. But their food was not very good. So they weren't really changing because, yes, they were exercising, but they weren't getting the food and the nutrition side of it. So I then sort of added on the nutrition side of things. And then I was like, it's really strange because people have all the tools that they need. They know what they need to be doing food-wise. They've got all the solutions exercise-wise, and there was still something missing. And that's when I came across neuro-linguistic programming, so NLP. And I was like, I found the missing link. And really, it's not just about having the tools. It's also the values and beliefs that are sitting underneath that are controlling the behavior. So I thought, I've found the solution. I found it great to have this additional coaching tool alongside of it. But I still came up against some sort of roadblocks. There were still people that said they really wanted to change. And I was doing everything from my perspective to try and help, and we still will sometimes not be able to make progress. And then I very accidentally went along to a breathwork session about 3 years ago. And it just completely blew me away. I couldn't believe the experience. It was so profound, so many deep shifts. And I was like, okay, maybe, this can access bits which I wasn't able to do previous to that. And now Yeah, I'm a holosomatic breathwork therapist. I'm a master trainer with Innercamp. So a company who's trained over 2,000 people to be holosomatic breathwork, bodywork, and energy work therapists. And yeah, I'm very grateful to be part of the team there. And we help out with the teacher trainings, and we do a lot of workshops in person, online. So it's completely changed my life. It's flipped everything round. And I love it because it feels like I've always been on this path, and it's just evolved over time. And every time I've loved it. I've loved each level of the evolution. And this one seems to be the most impactful so far. But yeah, I'm loving the journey, and yeah, it's fairly new. So yeah, I'm sure in the next sort of 5-10 years, yeah, we're going to continue to more discoveries and more insights, more realizations. But yeah, as it is at the moment, it's an amazing experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That sounds so interesting. And I really feel like we have a similar journey, because I also tried so many tools, and as a psychotherapist, you also always try to help people, and you realize at some point there are some barriers. Like, some people understand and they really want to change, but there's just something deeper that prevents them from actually making the changes. And that's how I stumbled upon breathwork as well. So
amazing. Well, I think, it's really like, coming from my perspective, is like, I found myself in a point of my life where I needed direction, and I felt stuck, and I really wanted to change. So it was what I was seeking. So naturally then I fall into that work. So then, of course I want to try to help. My passion is when someone's stuck, is helping them to see that there is a potential. So I might not have the solution for that, but, the limiting belief or the thought, just the belief that it's not possible for them because of X, Y, and Z. It doesn't matter how much there is scientific backing to say that, yes, they are probably true. I won't allow that to be a belief that I hold, because otherwise I'm powerless to be able to make a difference. So I just don't believe anything. It just keeps me open to be able to, for possibilities. And it's not that I don't believe everything, but I don't hold on to it. So I feel that everyone has the potential to be able to change. And I found that, yeah, the sort of somatic type therapies, I'm really, really loving. And I'm loving to see, the transformation on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's actually so powerful, that we always believe in healing, and that it's possible for everyone, because if we as the facilitators don't believe it, we can't open up the possibility of healing for our clients. But before we dive into all of this, I wanted to ask you about breathwork. You mentioned that now, but maybe there are some people out there who have no idea what breathwork is, or maybe they heard of the Wim Hof breathwork or the box breathing, but don't really know what we are talking about right now. So maybe you can explain a little bit what breathwork is, and about the different styles, and maybe also about the benefits.
Yeah, amazing. And, as I say, 3 years ago, I didn't really know what breathwork was. And I'd downloaded the Wim Hof audiobook. I'd listened to what it was like, wow, this sounds really impressive. I'd done some rounds of the breathing with the breath holds, had some cold showers, did it for maybe 4 or 5 days in a row. And then I just didn't do it the next day. I forgot. And then I just got out of the habit of it. And that was really my experience of what breathwork was. Then I was invited along to a breathwork workshop, and I thought it would be something similar. I didn't know at the time about box breathing, but I imagined me attending this group session. We would all sit down, we would all breathe in a particular way for a minute or 2 minutes. And then if we were feeling tired, we could feel more energized. Or if we were feeling stressed, we could feel more calm. Or, essentially, I thought we were going to be using the breath for a very short space of time, learn some tricks, 1 or 2 minute tricks where we can change our state. And I was like, I'm up for that. I would love to have these additional tools. And instead, we did a breathwork session, which is more like conscious connected breathwork. It was a conscious connected breathwork session. And conscious connected breathwork is very different to box breathing, as you very well know.
For sure.
And it's also different to Wim Hof. I mean, Wim Hof, there is some conscious connected breathing in there as well. But the experience when you do a conscious connected breathwork session, wow. And it wiped me off my feet, because we laid down on the floor and we breathed pretty intensely for an hour. It felt like 10 minutes. I couldn't believe how quickly the time had gone. I thought they had just said we'd been breathing for an hour, and we hadn't really. And for me, that first session, the things that I felt in that first session was more physical. So I had like these strange claw hands, which we know as tetany now. And my arms ended up like behind my head. And so I had a lot of this like strong physical sensations, but also I had this very, very deep meditative experience towards the end, where I had this like out of body experience. I was floating above my body. And I remember the moment where I dropped back into my body, and it was like, wow. And then we were returning back to normal breathing and sitting up. And I was like, as I say, this felt like 10 minutes. And I was like, wow, that wasn't like, I think I feel a little bit more calm, or I think I feel a little bit more energized. That was like way more than what I was expecting. And what really blew my mind more than anything was there was an opportunity at the end for the people that were in the room. And I think there was about 15 people in the room. It was an in-person session, and they had an opportunity to share and ask questions at the end. And I couldn't believe it, that there had been some people in the room that had been crying and releasing out emotions. There were people in the room who had actually connected to loved ones that had passed away. There was people who had had more of a psychedelic experience and seen sort of colors and shapes and these things. And I was like, what have I just found? Because we've literally all been breathing in the same way. We've all been listening to the same music. And why have we all had these very different experiences, but everybody had a very profound experience? And I was like, what is this? And then for me, I'd never heard of the music before. It was not music that I would normally have listened to before. They were all new songs to me. So I was trying to search for anything breathwork. And of course, I was coming up with things like box breathing, and Wim Hof was coming up, but I was looking for this other type of breathing. I didn't know it was called conscious connected breathwork at the time. But I was finding all these different things. And then Innercamp, so the company that I now work with, and I'm one of the facilitators at Innercamp, an advert popped up. And the advert was for their holosomatic breathwork therapy training. And at the time, I wanted to know more. I wanted to experience more. I wanted to know what was happening, why it was happening, because it was so powerful. And I was like, if this is that powerful, this could be an amazing tool to be able to help other people. But when I actually signed up for the course, I had no intention on being a facilitator and guiding people. I thought that's for other people to do, but I just wanted the journey myself. I just wanted to do a lot more of it. And on the course, again, I had just such profound, deep experiences, real trauma healing experiences, and a lot of release of emotions and a lot of physical release. It was transformational. The facilitator training, even though it was to be a facilitator, I received so much. And then the light bulb moment happened to me. The insight happened to me during a breathwork session that the facilitators aren't actually doing the magic. So they're not, saying something very clever to pluck a trauma out or to remove an emotion out of someone's body. And they're not guiding someone to an inner child experience and these sort of things. The facilitators were holding the space. They were making sure people were breathing in the correct way. They were making sure everyone felt safe. They were playing the music. They had a very good job. They had a job to do that was really important. But all the really profound stuff was happening within the breather. So it was the breather that was doing it. And I was like, oh, if I don't have to create the magic, maybe I can do it too. And yeah, now I've facilitated like well over 300 hours of breathwork and bodywork. And yeah, I just absolutely love it. So I know I've spoken a lot about that bit. I know you also mentioned about the benefits. I've sort of touched into it a little bit in my story, but for some people, it is like meditation. It's like a mindfulness practice. And for me, I tried meditation before. I just couldn't get on with it because I was too distracted all the time. I needed to be doing something and my mind would wander too much. Of course, the idea of meditation is then come back to the present moment. But I just got frustrated in those sort of situations. But within breathwork, because there's a lot to focus on, you're focusing on how you're breathing, where you're sending the breath, making sure it's connected, you're being guided. There's all these things to focus on. So of course we do start to wander with the thoughts and things, but it's very easy to come back to the guidance and the pattern of the breathing. And it enables people who are maybe not very good at mindfulness practices to get those deep experiences. And I mean, anybody can benefit from that, especially if people have an unregulated nervous system and they have high levels of stress or anxiety. Then of course, having a tool to be able to do it that isn't alcohol, because some people, they use alcohol or they smoke because they need something to calm the body. But of course, that has detriment. In the long run, it doesn't help, but in the short term, it's good, or it feels good in the moment. So there's this, I think, underlying, it's great for everyone just from that perspective. But then you have this release of emotions or energy that's stuck within the body. And again, I'd never heard of any of this before. No one ever taught me this previous to getting involved with holosomatic breathwork. And it's but I felt it. And I had many experiences where my body was moving, when I had these different sensations, when I was releasing tensions that had been held on there for a long period of time, but also emotions. And, I don't know, but many guys, they often are not people that tend to let out emotions. So having a space for men, unbelievable to have a tool to be able to release those emotions that are repressed and things that are pushed down. It also, from my perspective, gave me deep insights and a different perspective of seeing many different areas of life and many different relationships. I hadn't spoken to my father for 18 years before getting started with this practice. And then now I saw him today. I see him 3 times a week. It's it's transformed things. And it's unbelievable. And for me personally, beforehand, I didn't realize until I then started studying and doing all the work with Innercamp that I had complex trauma. I had no idea, because maybe many people who have traumas and things, they say, oh, I'm fine. And they say other people have it worse than me, so I don't deserve to be, labeled in this way, etc. And actually, if I was to have a conversation with someone, they'd be like, wow, if you shared that, or if someone shared that with me, I'd be quite concerned about them. But we learn to, deal with these things. And then I didn't realize the behavior patterns that were running throughout my whole life. So I worked within health and wellness for a very good reason, because I knew from a young age I was going to be overweight if I didn't, because me and food, there's no off button. I could just keep going and going, and I like bad foods and things like that. So I actually started to work in the field for accountability to try to keep me there. And the way I saw the world was that I'm someone who just likes to challenge myself, to see if I can improve, to see if I can get better. So I used to run. I used to run 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, ultra marathons. And I just thought it was because I wanted to get better and I wanted to challenge myself. And now I become more aware that actually I had all this stuff, all this energy, and this was the way of me keeping it pushed down. That was my way of using that energy. And also, I would work at first thing in the morning. So I'd make sure I'd have clients at 6:30 in the morning. And the reason for it is because I knew that I could easily be someone who would drink far too much alcohol. And so I built my life so it would be very, very inconvenient if I did. And I still done it many times. I had, the circle of friends that I was around at the time, I would still be having alcohol during the week. Sometimes it would be until the early hours of the morning and I just thought this was normal. This is a normal part of life. And then when I realized that this addictive nature to exercise, to work, to alcohol, to all these different things, when I became aware of what was going on underneath the surface, and it was challenging. It was not an easy journey to unpick this stuff. And I got myself in some very challenging situations, and my body literally was not happy with me for a good few months. It was a very challenging period of time. But after that, alcohol has no attraction to me. I had stopped drinking alcohol for maybe 3 months or 6 months at a time before out of willpower. I made myself not do it. Where now I have no interest. So it's like I've taken the fuel source that was making me want it, and that alone, unbelievable transformation. Like I just didn't even think that was a thing. So these are just like my experiences. It's more like trauma healing, being able to change behaviors, being able to see relationships, fix relationships, unbelievable. It's been just such an incredible journey for me, and I wouldn't have been able to do it if it wasn't for Innercamp and like the community they have, because I knew nobody that did breathwork. I knew nobody that was doing any sort of trauma healing and things like that. None of my people that I surrounded myself with were people that would be sort of supportive of that. They were encouraging the opposite behaviors. So it's like to have a community, to have somewhere to go to was everything that I needed. So yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I've gone off on quite a thing, but that's how I would sort of summarize my experience and sort of the benefits.
Wow, what a story, and amazing. I think it's so amazing because I think those are the patterns that are the hardest to break, like are those slightly addictive patterns maybe that are ran from like a deep place of pain usually, I think. And it's amazing that breathwork could help you with that. And from what you said, it sounds like, and I think that's the fascinating fact about breathwork, that it could help you to release emotions that you maybe didn't even know were there.
Yeah. It brought awareness to me, things that I had no idea. And as soon as the awareness there, that was challenging. So it's not like, oh yeah, you just do a couple of breathwork sessions and everything is great and everything changes. Like you've got to go through the challenge, of course, but it's worth the challenge.
Yeah. So it works on the emotional level, but you also had insights. So the mind is somehow also involved. And you mentioned the meditative state. So it's interesting how it affects so many different levels of our being, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And before, I was someone who I wanted to improve. I wanted to change because I also wanted to help people to be able to change. So the number of books that I would read on different topics around values, beliefs, and, all these types of things, I was just so deeply in it, but it was all from an intellectual perspective. And this is great, having an intellectual understanding. But if the hard wiring underneath is sort of keeping us in a different perspective, amazing. And like what I think I wanted then is completely different. Like I wanted my life to transform, but I thought it looked different, and I thought it would look different, but it's about feeling different rather than, it was always more of a outside in perspective before. I always wanted to achieve things so other people would see and like perceive me in a particular way, where it's like having the transformation where it feels good from the inside out. It's like, it's really, been transformational.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think it's so interesting because with our head, like with our thoughts, our mind, we can only like think about what a good life could be like, and we can strive for that, but like we actually do want a life that feels good, and for that we need to be connected with our emotions and our intuition and all those things.
And that's it. Like the more intuitive and the more we can tap into that, it's just things just flow. And it's no longer like forcing. I always felt like I was trying to make things happen, when now it's just like things flow more freely. Of course, there's still challenges. There's still things that are very hard at times and things like that. But it's like just having a different perspective to be able to deal with it, rather than turn to alcohol or over-exercise to try to deal with this challenging situation.
Yeah, amazing. So like people who have maybe never been at a breathwork session, have never done conscious connected breathwork, what can people expect if they go to, like, let's say a holosomatic breathwork session?
Yeah, really, really good point. So one thing that's important to understand is like, so I did, first of all, a conscious connected breathwork session. Then I trained to do the holosomatic breathwork therapy. So the thing with holosomatic breathwork therapy is it uses conscious connected breathwork as one of the pillars. So it's like, it's not only conscious connected breathwork, it uses other somatic therapies, and it sort of combines different things. So if you went along to a conscious connected breathwork, it may be slightly different to what I'm going to be sort of sharing and things like that. So it wouldn't necessarily be exactly the same. Now, the main part of the session, there's going to be a lot of similarities, and the type of things that you're going to experience and feel and things like that, there's going to be a lot of parallels. Okay. But yeah, just understand that this is sort of, a combination approach. So if someone was to come along to a, say, holosomatic breathwork therapy session, what would happen is you'd come into a room. There'd be, sometimes people do this as a one-to-one, but many times it's normally smaller group, or it can be large group sessions as well. And really, like, the effectiveness is the same whether it's a small group or a large group. So some people think, oh, you're not going to get the same experience if it's a large group, if it's a smaller group. Or another one that is like, if it's online or in person, it's not going to be the same. And people are always like, no, because you need the energy. It's all about the energy. And it's like, yeah, but guess what? You're working with your energy. So your energy is going to be there anyway, because that's where the magic happens, is working with your energy. So it's just as effective in person as it is online. That's my perspective. I've had so many transformational experiences online. Some of the deepest ones I've had have been online. Now, having that in mind, if you go along to an in-person, sometimes you can feel safer. And you can feel safer because you have the facilitator there. It's safe both ways, but it's the perception of safety. And if you feel safer, and maybe the incense is burning, so then that makes you feel good. So there's other things going on. But all it is to enable you to feel safer. And then the safer you feel, the more you let go. And the more you let go, the deeper you go, and the more transformation that you experience. So during a session, what can we expect? Normally, there'd be an introduction to obviously let you know a little bit about the facilitators and about the type of session that's going to happen. So the difference between different types of breath work, also how we're going to be breathing. We're going to practice the different breathing techniques. So sometimes it's breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. Sometimes it's in through the mouth, out through the mouth. There's many different breathing techniques. Sometimes it's a single inhale. Sometimes it's a two-part inhale. So there's many different things that we do. So for that session, there may be a couple of different techniques that we use. So we practice those. We practice breathing into the belly. We practice the diaphragmatic breathing and explaining why we do that as well. And also letting people know the type of things that someone can experience during a session. And this is really important. The main reason for it is so during a session, if suddenly you start to feel emotional, you might like worry that something's going wrong. Or if you start to feel this tightness around your chest, you're like, am I having a heart attack? So it's to put people's minds at rest, that when they're in their experience, all of these things are very normal. So tingling sensations like pins and needles, or like little tingling sensations at any part of the body, is very, very normal. This thing known as tetany, which I said I had in my first session, these strange claw hands and things. And it's like, if these are happening, it's very, very normal, and it's safe to practice. Okay, nothing's going wrong. You're not going to end up staying in that position for the rest of your life. It's momentarily. Temperature change. So some people get very, very hot. They're sweating head to toe, And then sometimes people get very, very cold. Their teeth are chattering, their lips turn blue. And that could be in the same session. They can go up, they can go down. It could be the left side of the body and the right side of the body. So temperature change is very normal. So again, people don't panic when they start to be like, why are my legs feeling really cold, but I feel hot? Other things people experience, emotions. And these emotions, the emotions that come up are things that have been repressed. So let's say as a child, you were told, stop crying, because now I've got a 3-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy. I know how challenging it is at times when they're crying a lot. It's easy to be like, stop crying, go to sleep, and all this other sort of thing. But when we do that, when someone is feeling an emotion, if we try to put a stop on it, or you're a bad person for that, they learn how to regulate. They know that if they're having an emotion like this, they're not going to be accepted by their parents. So what they're going to learn to do is how they need to breathe, how they need to regulate to push it back down. So as soon as it builds up, no, don't feel, push. And that can be with sadness and wanting to let out sadness. It can be happiness. So you're out at a restaurant and the kids are making a lot of noise and they're like laughing and they're disrupting the other people. So of course, to be respectful of other people, we need, but you know, if we punish kids for having a good time and being happy and things like that, they learn that when they get that feeling of excitement, it's bad. We shouldn't do that. So we push it back down. No, it's not. And this is what's really funny is during breath work, sometimes people get triggered. At most of the time, people get triggered. And triggered just means that something really irritates them. Somebody in the room is making a noise and they're like, how rude of that person to make a noise. And it's like, maybe someone told that person it was rude to be noisy. And actually they want to be noisy, or as a kid, they wanted to be noisy, but they got told that's a bad thing to do. So they've learned how to regulate. And now anybody who disrupts other people, how dare they do that? So it's like we can become more aware of where our opportunity for healing is just through what triggers us. And that was an insight that only came maybe in the last 12 months. And since I've become aware of that, it's like, oh, it doesn't have to be stressful when I get triggered by something. It's an awareness thing. So that has just been one of the biggest insights for me on this whole journey. But yeah, so emotions, so things that get pushed down. So it could be happiness and joy, wanting to laugh out loud. It can be sadness. It can be grief. It can be anger. So maybe as a child, you know, you're maybe a bit more boisterous, and, you know, especially the boys, they tend to be a little bit more boisterous with other boys. And maybe, you know, they have to learn the boundaries. They have to know when's the right time to be able to do that. So of course, they may then push a kid. That's the wrong kid to do it, or they're a bit younger. They get told off for it. They need these boundaries. But it's like how far it gets pushed and how regularly they get told off, or they get seen they're a bad kid because they are aggressive. They repress. As soon as, like, aggression is a normal human emotion, and it's a healthy thing. Of course, we shouldn't go around and just outrageously be bad to other people, but it's like, it's normal to feel anger, and it's normal to be able to find some way of outletting that anger. And that may be verbally. You need to get something off your chest, as they say. If you don't get it off your chest, it stays on your chest, and that's heavy. And then you do a breathwork session, and then it comes up, and then this emotion that's been bubbling, happiness, joy, sadness, anger, bubbles, and it gives us an opportunity to release it. So one thing that has come to mind for me is, like, you know, energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. So when we have these feelings, these emotions, the adrenaline pumping through our body, if it's not used, if we don't run, if we don't fight, if we don't scream, if we don't do whatever it is that emotion is, where does it go? It doesn't disappear. It gets held within the body through tensions. We're tighter. We hold our shoulders up. We have more restrictions in our body. And it's like this tightness that builds up. This is what we can help to release during a breathwork session. So it's like these emotions, but also the physical restrictions. These are in our ligaments and our tendons and our muscles because we want to fight and we don't. So we hold that stuff in. So yeah, physical emotions. We explain about these things. We can explain about how they can see more psychedelic experience. They see colors, they see geometric patterns, they see symbols. They connect with their ancestors, past loved ones. They connect to their inner child. This is something that's quite commonly come up, or like deep meditative, transpersonal type experiences as well. So all of these things are very, very normal. So we explain it all, and the newbies in the room automatically think, yeah, right. Like, come on, you're exaggerating everything. Surely this is not going to happen. Now, of course, someone's not going to experience every single one of them, but we tell it so then people don't panic and they know it's normal when these things come about. Then we'll do some exercise to prepare the body. And sometimes this, depending on the type of session you go along to, this may be just a short grounding practice, maybe some box breathing, maybe 20 connected breaths, maybe some shaking. There's many different practices that we can do to sort of prepare the body. And within a group session, the more preparation for the body, the better. Because if we go straight into the work, it's going to take 10, 15 minutes of people to start to open up. If we do some beginning practices, which is what we do a lot with the holosomatic breathwork therapy sessions, is we do more practices beforehand to prepare the body. When we get into the work and we do active breathing for 45 minutes or an hour, we're already into the good stuff. We're already seeing things. We're already releasing things, etc. And then at the end of the session, when everyone's guided back, gets guided back to sit themselves back up and spend some time maybe journaling and reflecting on the experience. And then there's that opportunity to share. And as I say, that was one of the most profound things for me when I went to my first session, was hearing other people's experiences. And then I was like, wow, that's what happened to me. But also it's like, how has that happened during the same session that I've had, sort of thing. So this is sort of I say typical. It sounds like it's crazy. It sounds like really over the top. And for some people, they just have a peaceful experience. They have a deep meditative experience because that's what they need. And actually, today is not the day that they need to unearth some trauma and start to do it. They're not ready for that. Maybe they have high level of stress coming into it, and actually adding more stress to the body is not going to be healing. So they have more of a peaceful experience. But yeah, people always have the experience they want to have. The frustration for many people is they want to release an emotion, or they have a trauma they want to work with, and they come along and it doesn't go there. And it's not the right time. That's the important thing, is like the body's going to do it when it's safe to do it, when it's ready to do it.
Yeah, I think that's really true. Like in all settings, that our subconsciousness is way smarter than we think it is. And it knows better than our mind that just kind of wants to do something specific quite often. Yeah, that sounds like what you talked about. It sounds so fascinating. And I already feel that I want to go back and do more breathwork sessions. So are there some people maybe who shouldn't do breathwork? Are there contraindications?
Yeah. There's quite a lot of contraindications, and it's really, really important that before you do any breath work, that you double check the contraindications. So there's quite a long list of things. Okay, so I wouldn't want to sort of list them all off now. I'll mention a few, but don't take this as the only things, because there's many things, and I wouldn't want you to think, oh, I'm fine because I don't have one of those. So for people who are like medicated for their mental health, this is a no-no. It's not a smart thing to be able to do. And the main reason for this is the person who's the facilitator, many times, not all the time, is not a psychotherapist. So they don't have the tools to be able to help. They have the tools to hold the space, to play the music, to make sure you're breathing in the right way. But if you have, if you go into more of a psychotic episode or something like that, because you're more susceptible to that, then they're not skilled to be able to deal with that situation. Now, of course, there are facilitators that are, but you just need to double check that that's in place. Yeah. So other things, there are a number of different heart conditions. that are very, very important. So again, it's worth, like, if you go to sign up for a session, every good breathwork session should have the contraindications there, and you should have to accept that you're okay with all those. If you're not 100% sure and you'd love to find out what the contraindications are, maybe we'll leave it in the notes of the podcast, actually. Or you can go to the Innercamp website, and on there's the workshops online and in person, and you'll see the contraindications all lined out there. Let me just think if there's other ones that come to mind. Things like high blood pressure is one of them, they say. Now, this is uncontrolled high blood pressure, or because of course, sometimes we're stressed in a moment and we have temporary higher blood pressure. Okay. So there are some things which is okay, it's best to get checked out. And again, if it's uncontrolled, if you're not responsible for your state, so say sometimes you're having panic attacks and things like that, it's maybe not the best time to do more of the holosomatic, more psychedelic style. However, there is styles of breathwork, like the breathwork for more meditative states, which are perfect. So it's with Innercamp, we have 6 different types of breathwork techniques. The thing that I'm talking about is one of the main ones we use. But there are techniques which are better depending on the situation, and trauma. Now, I didn't even know I had trauma. And there are people who don't even have no awareness that they have trauma, and they have trauma. So more severe traumas, or someone who knows that it's something that's fairly recent and they are feeling challenged and they're going into panic attacks or things like that on a regular basis. So it's not controlled. This is something where the normal psychedelic style breathwork, it's not going to be sensible. However, of course, people come along to the sessions not knowing that they have traumas because it's something from their childhood and it's not even something on their awareness, like me. It doesn't mean it's going to be dangerous, but it's just, you need to make sure that you're feeling stable in your own ability to control your mental state. So if you've had any sort of history in the last sort of 3, 6 months, 12 months, or if someone's been sectioned, say, this is a no-no, because the person who's guiding is likely not qualified to be able to deal with the situation if it doesn't go as normal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's also so important to make sure that breathwork sessions are safe, of course. And since there's a lot of attention at the moment for breathwork and a lot of people are getting into it and trying it for the first time, I think it's important, to talk about these things too.
I'll add to that this one I think is just really, really amazing about Innercamp is Alexis, who started the company. His experience was he had a very high stress job, IT job. He was climbing the corporate ladder. He had what most people would see as success. He had the car, he had the nice apartment, he had all these nice things. But his body started to break down. He became celiac. He had all these different digestive issues, many different problems, and he struggled sleeping, had insomnia. He was going through talk therapy, and he then became aware of his problems and he became aware of his behavior patterns, but he still struggled to then know what to do for the next step. He was then living in Thailand for a period of time, and then someone said, "Have you tried breathwork?" He'd never heard of it before. He thought it was like some pranayama to get into the meditative state. Went along, was literally blown away. Such a profound experience. So he had this profound experience. Then he started to practice by himself at home, and it didn't go well. He overloaded his nervous system. He then didn't sleep for 3 days. He had a bad experience from a breathwork perspective because he didn't know what he was doing. He wasn't doing it in a safe way. He didn't know how long to do it for. So from that experience of having a profound experience and having a dangerous experience, he was like, I love breathwork, but it needs to be done in the right way. So for within Innercamp, everything is trauma informed. Everything is done from a perspective. And many of the sessions, if you're looking for breathwork, it won't necessarily be called a therapy, where holosomatic breathwork therapy it's there to be a therapeutic perspective. It's there for healing. It's there to not do people harm. It's to help people. So that's like the foundation of it. And I think it's so, so important that it comes from that perspective, because it's always safety first. It's always the science has got to be really, really solid before we're incorporating something into a practice. So I feel very grateful to have come across a good school, because all the things that I've learned, and now that we teach at Innercamp, it's like, these are the things that we do, and this is how we wouldn't do it. And we wouldn't do this because this, from a trauma-informed perspective, is not good. And then there's big schools, big people out on social media that have lots of followers, and they're very, very popular, doing things that we were like, oh, from a trauma perspective, maybe you shouldn't stand like that over someone whilst doing some body work. Maybe you shouldn't do some of these things. But it's like, it's as if sometimes it's more like a show, and it's like some magic. So it's like, oh yeah, we need to try and do these things. And it's like, and I think the foundation of it being a therapy and to help people is really, really important. I think that's where Innercamp are just so, so good, is it comes from not just we should be doing this. It comes from his heart. So it's like the foundation of everything. So I think it's so, so powerful and so, so important.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think that's also why I chose Innercamp for my education, because it's trauma-informed, and that's really important. And if there are some people out there and they maybe are looking for a breathwork event close by or something, obviously they can go to Innercamp. We already talked about that. But is there maybe something people should watch out for to make sure they're going to like have a safe experience at an event?
Yeah, so what I would do is I would double check if you're looking and you found some event that's coming up. Double check that when you go to book, there's a contraindications list. If there's no contraindication list, then that's a red flag that I wouldn't go near it, because if they will accept anybody, they probably don't know the risks. And, thankfully, since I've been practicing and since I've been holding space, I've never had any sort of situations, but that's because we always respect the contraindications list. I've had a friend who had signed up for the course, the Innercamp course, and hadn't started yet, but had a friend and just thought he would practice some Wim Hof breathing with that friend, and he was helping to guide him. And the guy had a mental breakdown a few months beforehand and went into a psychotic episode. And he messaged me and he was like, what shall I do? And it's like, the thing is, when you respect the contraindication list, you're going to be fine. Like, of course, sometimes someone will think, oh, I'll be fine, and pretend, and they'll say that they're fine. So obviously things can maybe still happen, touch wood. So far, everything's all been fine, and it's a very, very safe practice. But it's really important. So the contraindications is like, if that's on the website, that's something that I would be like, okay, check. I'm happy, and this is likely to be a good one. And also, I would check, if it's trauma informed. So if it's a trauma informed, it will say that it's trauma informed, because it's like a badge of honor to be trauma informed, because it's something that's really, really important. But again, some people don't even know what trauma informed is, and they're working within this field. So they wouldn't be putting that on there, because either they don't have it, or they're not even aware that it is something. So they would be probably the two things that I would look out for. To make sure it's a safe experience, so that they respect the contraindications, so they know that they're going to be working with someone and they have the tools to be able to support that person, and that they are trauma-informed, so they're aware of how to not re-traumatize or to avoid re-traumatization. Because yes, of course, like sometimes we see things on social media and there's these big experiences and things like that, but it's like, there's a limit to how much we allow to happen. If someone's having an experience, amazing. Like, yes, they can cry, they can yell, they can do what they need to do. But if it goes on for too long, it can be doing more harm than good. So we will bring people back. We will resource them. We will get them returned to normal breathing. So it's like, it's not just the bigger, the better. It's yes, express. But if we feel like it's going on for too long, we will bring it back. So again, that's part of the trauma-informed approach.
Yeah, it's amazing and so important, because I think like our system can do so much. Our body can heal itself, and breathwork is like such a powerful way of like activating like your own power to heal yourself. But you also sometimes need a facilitator and a setting that's supporting you.
Yeah.
I have one question for you that is a little bit different, but I was wondering, you said you guided like, I don't know, more than 300 breathwork sessions. Mm-hmm. And so you were witness of like people having a lot of profound experiences. Mm. So I wonder, like you having gone through like so much yourself and having guided so many people, what are the biggest learnings you had about what it means to be human and about like how to be okay going through this life?
Wow, what a question. What a question. Okay, so what have I seen, or what insights have really come to me? I would say that, everyone has already got it. Everything that people are looking for, they already have. And that anything that they're looking that they need from a breathwork session, they don't even need breathwork. They don't need it. The breathwork is an opportunity to access these things. But sometimes we'll be driving in the car and we can have a deep experience. We can be walking the dog and we can have these deep experiences. Now, many of the times we're doing those things and we're distracted. We're listening to music or a podcast, or we're doing something else at the same time. So we don't allow that moment of stillness to be able to check in. And for some people, they need something where it's more structured, that it's more guided. And for me, I wouldn't have had the experiences that I've had if it wasn't for breathwork, without a doubt. If I wasn't guided by someone, I wouldn't have had the experience that I've had. However, since then, I still do breathwork. I still love breathwork. I'm actually booked on to the December retreat of Innercamp as a student. I'm actually going there to breathe and to receive and things like that. So I love the practice, but I have deep experiences, sometimes day to day, just normal day to day. And that's not because I have managed to unlock some magical powers or something. I've now become aware that was happening before, but I didn't even realize what it was. I've remembered multiple times where I've driven along the car and I've cried, and it was an emotional release, and I didn't know that's what it was at the time. And it's like, that's what I'm getting in breath work. And it's like, we already have it. So when we find ourselves in stillness, when we're in that deep meditative state, or just not busying the mind, the body is self-correcting. When we quiet the mind, we get insights, and insights is like a new thought. It's not thoughts that we have and we're like, oh, what's that? And we're like going around of our mind and like intellectually coming to something. It's something that pops in there and we've never thought that thought before. And it's a new perspective. And when we quieten the mind, these insights are what we need to listen to. And that's what it is during breath work. We are in a space which is insight friendly. So we just, once we've cleared some stuff sometimes, or at the end of the session, it's like pop, 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 pop. It's like popcorn. They're just popping here, there, and everywhere. And again, during a breathwork session, we can have deep experiences, but that doesn't mean it's going to make any difference to your life just because you've cried or yelled or had this new perspective shift. The work actually comes when you finish the session and you go back into your life. And I think this is the most important thing, the integration is the most important thing. So this is a word that's used a lot, integration. I'll do some journaling, go for a walk, do these type of things. These are very, very important, because this is where these insights can come back in. When we can connect the dots of our experience, but also integration is how we integrate it into the next time we speak to our spouse, the next time we speak to our boss, the next time we speak to our friends. That's integration. Because if we, in that moment, choose to react, to think, to behave the same way that we've always done, nothing changes. We've done the session, we've had this experience, but your life is the same. So the work comes when we get back into our lives, because yes, you're on a retreat and you can have these deep experiences and it's like, wow, I feel amazing. But it's like, okay, but then you've got to do the laundry on Monday. You've got to take the kids to school. You've got to do life. Life continues as normal. And it's like, how can we then integrate our new perspectives, the way we are, our new beliefs, the new way we see the world, and our interactions with all of the people. Like, we have different roles in our life, maybe we're a son or a daughter, or maybe we're a husband or a father, or maybe we're a best friend, or we're a colleague, or we're a boss, or, we have all these different hats that we wear, all these different roles, and each of them reinforce who we are and how we think and how we feel. So we can have this experience on the yoga mat, and we can have this experience on a retreat or at a workshop, but it's when we then go back into those experiences, sometimes there's this rub. And this is the opportunity. And like, I had this insight during a breathwork session that when we're in those experiences and that you feel that heart rate go up, you feel that's your soul telling you it's time to do something different. It's not, that's not fear. That's awareness that, okay, now I get to choose. Because if you choose what you normally do, everything's going to stay the same.
Yeah, fascinating. And yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing all of this with us. Yeah, like, I imagine like everybody who is listening by now wants to do a breathwork session.
I do as well. I love it.
Yeah. So the Innercamp is going to be on tour in Europe, right? Do you want to share a little bit about that? I will link it in the podcast show notes, but maybe it's good if you share a few words about it.
Yeah. So we only in June this year started to do some on-site workshops. So, me, once I got certified and everything, I started to do my own sessions locally in my local community. So I do some regular sessions. And Innercamp was just a teacher training school for people to learn the method. And we had some online workshops that people could attend. But really, it's a teacher training. But earlier on this year, we decided to actually go to a number of cities to share the method, to first of all, raise awareness to what is breathwork, what is holosomatic therapy, like what's the potential. So we wanted to give more people this experience. We also wanted people in that area to be like, I would really want to do more holosomatic breathwork. And then they find a facilitator that's trained through us. And then they go to their session. So it was like, the intention of going around to the sessions was, yes, to share the method, to bring more awareness, to help our facilitators to then have people that want to do this method because they've had an experience and they love it, but also look for people who are also wanting to do this as work, who feel called to work in this type of field. So at the beginning of the year, we put some plans in place, and in June we did our first workshops, and we were booking yoga studios and things like that of like 30 to 40 people. They very, very quickly sold out. So like on the first tour, I think we saw like 120 people or something like that. And then the next one was a little bit bigger. So that was only in June. Then we did July. Then we did August. Now, September, tomorrow, I'm getting in my car and I'm driving from the UK over to Belgium, and then over to Cologne. And then we're going to start the tour around Germany and Switzerland. And over 8 locations, we're going to see probably 1,500 people, 1,600 people. It's gone crazy. The number of people who are interested, some of them have been along to a session and now they're like, I want to come again. And I can't explain this to my friends, so I'm bringing 3 of them with me. So that's why it's like grown to this sort of level. But yeah, we at the moment, now this is not going to be an ongoing thing. Our intention is to not every single month go around Europe because, as I mentioned earlier on, I've got a 3-year-old, I've got a 5-year-old, I've got a wife. It's demanding on them, me being away so much, and it's tiring. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of preparation, but we're doing it to raise the awareness and to be able to help people and give people the experience. So we are going to be going around Germany and Switzerland in September. In October, we're going to a few different dates in the UK. So we're doing some UK ones. And then in October, at the end of October, we are doing some across Europe. So we're doing like Amsterdam, we're doing Antwerp, we're doing maybe Dusseldorf. It might be another somewhere else. But yeah, we've got a number of different locations where we're going around. And we've got dates until the end of this year. Okay, so if you're interested, if you go to innercamp.com, and we'll have the link on there, and then go to on-site workshops, you can attend one of these in-person workshops. Okay, these are like 3-4 hours long, so it's not just an hour's worth of breathing. We're doing many different practices beforehand. We explain a lot. We do many different things, and we do like a full hour session, if that makes sense. So you're going to get the real holosomatic therapy experience when you come along to those sessions. So you get a chance to try all these different things. Now, next year, we don't know what it really holds. We definitely don't think it's sustainable for us to keep doing what we're doing right now, because we're also then running teacher trainings on site, online, attending family life and all these other sorts of things. We will still be doing some, but not as frequently, and that might evolve. Our real intention is to empower the students to be able to do them. And I want to do the big group one in my local town. So I want to be the student / Innercamp facilitator that does it in my local community. And we'd love to empower the students to be able to do it. So you don't have to wait until we come round. You'll be out there. There's going to be more available to you. But for now, these workshops are definitely going to be there till the end of the year. And then they're still going to happen, but probably less frequently.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that. And thank you for sharing your story with us today. And thank you for all the information you shared with us about breathwork. It was a really amazing conversation. Is there anything you still want to share with us today?
No, I think that was, I think I'm really, really pleased that we were able to have this conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for holding the space and allowing me to share my story, and for the questions as well. They're really insightful, and they help me to learn more as well. Even during this conversation, new awarenesses are coming through as well. So no, thank you so much for that too.
Ja, wie immer vielen Dank auch an dich, dass du heute mit dabei warst und dieser Folge bis zum Ende gelauscht hast. Und wie immer freue ich mich sehr, wenn du die Folge mit anderen Menschen teilen würdest, die vielleicht auch Interesse am Breathwork haben. Ich freue mich auch immer sehr, wenn du den Podcast mit 5 Sternen bewertest oder aber, wenn du uns vielleicht einen Kommentar auf Spotify, YouTube oder auf Instagram hinterlässt. Also vielen Dank dafür und wir hören uns in der nächsten Folge.